getting together today to talk about inclusion and inclusion in sport. And that's something that so many of you know so much about based on your personal experiences. So the first sort of thing that I wanted to get into with you guys, Jackie, I want to start with you, because powerlifting is an impressive feat on its own, but as a sport and as a hobby and a commitment like that, what got you into powerlifting, and specifically powerlifting within the Special Olympic community?
I first started Special Olympics in 1987 from a suggestion from my late mom's friends, Peter and Gene Casey. Peter Casey was the president of Special Olympics capital area for Halifax, and Peter G. Casey had a son who also had autism spectrum disorder like me, and since my parents were always trying to find a place for me to fit in, Peter G. Casey suggested that I should look at the joint Special Olympics. Then when I competed at the 1994 Special Olympics Canada Summer Games in Halifax in swimming, a couple of my coaches, Dave Johnny Moore and Leanne John Moore Bay, he introduced me to the sport of powerlifting. And it was there where I saw one of the powerlifters, Philip Brown, who deadlifted nearly 3 times his body weight. And these coaches told me that that could be me someday. And then when I was competing at the Special Olympics Canada Summer Games, some of the swimmers suggested, Jackie, if you're so strong, Jackie, why don't you take up powerlifting? So, and that's how it went from there.
And you certainly have left your mark on the sport, that is sure, for sure. You were also, I think this is incredible to mention, but you were also the first Special Olympian to be nominated for Canada's Athlete of the Year, the Lou Marsh Award. So your contributions to powerlifting certainly have not gone unnoticed.
That's correct. When I found out I got nominated for Lou Marsh Trophy, it wasn't just a big moment for me, but also a big moment for nearly 50,000 true heroes across Canada right now, which are the Special Olympics athletes themselves.
And so, Jackie, you found Special Olympics sort of through your family and from some close friends. But Sonja, I wanted to ask you about how you found the sport of curling, because in a way, it almost seemed to find you a little bit, and this happened a little bit later in your life. So can you tell us how you met the sport of curling and sort of fell in love?
Yeah, definitely. Well, I'd always been involved in sport my whole life, but then at 31, I had a horse accident and sustained a spinal cord injury. And so through that, I started searching for, all the adaptive sports that I could still participate in. But I was also asked to help out with a community renovation at the local curling club for a washroom accessible renovation, and was strongly encouraged to get out on the ice and try wheelchair curling, because it was going to be, an up and coming sport at the Paralympic level. But I was quite resistant at first because curling to me, I had never curled before. I played lots of other sports, but never curling. But I got out there. It was tough at first, and I did. I fell in love with it right away, because wheelchair curling is so integratable. Like, I can play on a team with 3 able-bodied athletes. Mm-hmm. That's the beauty of our sport too. Just for athletes who want to play for fun in their communities on a recreational team, you don't have to sit around and wait for 3 other athletes in chairs to play. You can integrate right into the able-bodied leagues. Your rocks might not get swept, or you're not doing the sweeping, but it's just a great sport to integrate.
The strategy that's involved in curling is something that, I don't care what sport it is you play or how you describe yourself as an athlete, I feel like the strategy involved in curling is so impressive and so incredible. But I also, at least through the reading that I had done, I had read that you turned to Rick Hansen for some advice and some encouragement. So what kind of a role did he play in helping you get involved in Paralympic sport?
Well, definitely Rick Hansen had a big role in my life prior to my accident, just learning about his Man in Motion tour. So when I had my accident, it was him who I thought about right away. And, it was great to have him come to visit me at the hospital and just really talk about life after spinal cord injury and what that looked like, and that I could pretty much do anything like I did before. It would just be a lot different. So
Well,
super encouraging.
and I guess that's something that I think a lot of you have in common, that you have people in your lives or in your sporting journeys that kind of stand out and have been a source of inspiration and encouragement for you. And Willie, I wanted to bring you in on this point because I had read that you actually had some junior coaches, Phil Watson and Jack Stewart, who at one point literally said to you, Willie, you're good enough, you could be the first Black player in the NHL. How much of an impact did that have on you?
Well, it had a big impact. You know, when I left my hometown in Fredericton in 1954 to go up to Quebec to play with the Frontenacs, Phil Watson was the coach, and you know, I had a good season there. And Phil even said, he said, Willie, he says, you have the skills and the talent to, you know, to play in the National Hockey League. There hasn't been a Black player. Well, it just kind of went in one ear and out the other with me. All I was trying to do was just concentrate and playing with the Frontenacs and trying to be the best player I could be. And again, the next year, Jack Stewart in Kitchener told me the same thing. And then it kind of registered with me then that maybe I could be the first Black player. And then in 1956, when I first signed my first professional contract with Punch Emlac of the Quebec Aces, again, I was told by Punch, Willie says, you have the skills and the talent. So all of a sudden, everything started to register. And then when I went up with the Bruins in 1958 on January the 18th and broke the color barrier.
And the rest is history, as they say.
Well, the rest is history.
Well, but that's what's so fascinating to me, how much of a difference one person or one comment can make along the way. And I think, you know, Richard, when we talk about your late father, Ross, and the role that he played in your life, you come from a very big family. So what was it like to have a role model like him? And how much did your family help shape your experiences with the sport of lacrosse?
Yeah, well, we had 8 boys that all played lacrosse with my dad. My dad and my oldest brother Gaylord is also in the Canada Sports Hall of Fame as well. So and they're both in the Canada Lacrosse Hall of Fame. So yeah, it was a big part of our life growing up. It was, I could say, central to our life in the summer times. And you know, thank God my mom was there to help out, because we wouldn't have been able to do it without her. So it's central to you know, our identity as well, because we refer to it as the creator's game. It's been a healing game, but in history, it was used to avoid wars. We would have a lacrosse game rather than go to war and settle disputes with a lacrosse game. So it's part of our culture, part of our history. And you'll see at Six Nations, we have almost every boy plays lacrosse, and from a very young age, they're given a lacrosse stick to play. So it's a community sport. It's owned by our community, and it's part of our, as I said, culture and history.
And Willie, I wanted to ask you, I kind of wanted to get into dealing with some of the tough stuff now, because what you dealt with back when you first started playing hockey in the National Hockey League, obviously it wasn't easy. There were racial slurs, there was taunting, and you know, when you're playing a sport, it's almost like, I'm sure that was another part of the game for you that you had to tackle and you had to conquer and you had to overcome. So when you look back on those days, what kind of advice or, you know, what kind of help can you give to young players and young athletes who might be dealing with something similar?
I faced a lot of racism and prejudice and bigotry and ignorance during my career, but I knew that I knew that I just had to go out and just perform and play my game. I fought a lot. I fought because I had to, not because I wanted to, but guys just wanted to see what I was made of. And, you know, guys wouldn't drop their sticks, and so I held on to my sticks. When they dropped their gloves, I dropped my glove. But I can honestly say that I never fought one time because of racial slurs or remarks. I fought because guys tried to spear me or butt-ended me or cross-check me, and I always tried to protect myself. You know, today, you know, working with the Hockey is for Everyone program, I just try to emphasize to these boys and girls that, you know, believe in yourself, feel good about yourself and like yourself, and just don't let anybody tell you you can't attain your goal if you feel strongly within your heart, within your mind. And I tell them, you know, if you think you can, you can. If you think you can't, you're right. And there's a lot of truth to that.
Mm-hmm. Well, and Richard, something stood out to me that your late father, Ross, said. He said, even a contact sport can be played fairly. And he spoke a lot about how it's a part of the game that you need to control on your own. You need to sort of fight that battle within and conquer it yourself, because as soon as you conquer that, then you can sort of reach your full potential. So can you talk a little bit about that sort of mentality that he instilled within you and the rest of your family, and even the other athletes that he coached?
Yeah. Well, he actually got that from his father, from our grandpa. My dad started out as a bit of a chippy player, and he used to get in the scraps. He was a pretty good scrapper. But my grandfather told him, you're not there to hurt anybody. You're there to do the best you can and play the critters game. So he told him, that's not the way to play. And he said, you know, the best way to beat them is in the scoreboard. I mean, he suffered a lot of racial slurs, you know, during playing. We all did. All, you know, everybody that played lacrosse who was indigenous has gone through that our whole lives. But we were raised, you know, to basically ignore it. Mm-hmm. Don't let them antagonize you. Don't let them get a penalty. It's going to cost your team, and beat them on the scoreboard. And so that's the way we were raised, and that's the way that, quite frankly, you know, at Six Nations, right now we've gotten so many championship teams over the last 2 decades that, you know, they're the pride of lacrosse, you know, across Canada because of so many championship teams. So they're beating people, but you know, they started out all the same. You know, the people in the crowds chanting racist names, and we just had to ignore it and do our best on the floor and beat them on the floor.
Well, and Jackie, you've talked a lot in your Special Olympic career about overcoming the challenges that you face, and you have such good positive advice for younger athletes, and you spend a lot of time coaching now and giving back. So what advice do you have for other athletes out there who might have an intellectual disability? What can you tell them? What helped you get through?
For all the parents who have a child with an intellectual disability, if they have any doubts about whether or not a child should be involved with Special Olympics, based on my experiences in my 28-year Special Olympics journey, my advice is that get them to join Special Olympics, because the moment they join Special Olympics, it's going to change their life forever. And the one thing you learn about Special Olympics is that Special Olympics will teach you not just sports and life skills, but also teach you to overcome the other challenges that you're going to face, whether it be in sport or in life. Now, if I recall 5 years ago when I was part of There Was No Special Treatment campaign, along with Robert Pepitone and Julia Longo, the message we're sending to the public is that sport doesn't care who you are, and in other words, 600 pounds is 600 pounds. And hopefully someday, me and other Special Olympics will inspire the next generation of true heroes. So once again, if you have a son or daughter who wants to be in Special Olympics, let them join, because it's going to change their lives forever.
Well, and I think that's a lot of the message that a lot of you are sending, is that sport has been such a positive impact on your life. It still is. It still plays a role in your life, and it probably will very much continue to do that. And that leads me to sort of the next topic of discussion. I wanted to ask you about visibility and recognition. I mean, we've talked to Jackie a little bit about him receiving the honor of being nominated for the Lou Marsh Award, the first Special Olympian to receive that honor. So let me start with you, maybe Sonja. When it comes to Paralympic sport and something like wheelchair curling, where do you think we are? How far do you think we've come? Or where do you think we need to get to help keep and make inclusion a priority?
Well, I think wheelchair curling in the last couple of years has really become more noticed, for sure. In terms of Paralympic sport also, you know, Canada was the first country to market the Paralympics and the Olympics together. And that has really brought a lot of awareness and attention to Paralympic sport and Paralympic athletes, you know, on par with the Olympics. So I think it's, you know, people are seeing the abilities and not the disability. And I mean, that's the message, right? We need to focus on our abilities and not our disabilities, to never give up. And like every person on this panel here is saying, it's always believing in ourselves, you know, and focusing on what we're doing out there in the field of sport, and, you know, blocking out all of the that noise in the background, whether it's about a disability or about, you know, a different culture. And sport has the ability to do that for us.
And Willie, you've donated so much of your time. You continue to spend time. I know you were heavily involved with the NHL's diversity task force. So, you know, unfortunately, we still see incidents of racism coming up, even associated with the National Hockey League as of late. So where do you think this is going? And what do you think needs to happen in order for us to keep, you know, pushing the envelope and making inclusion a priority?
Well, first of all, I think that we need to see more, not only black players, but players of color in the National Hockey League. There are more boys and girls playing hockey today than ever before. There are more rinks being constructed that give these boys and girls the opportunity to get on the ice. And I think that Commissioner Bettman of the National Hockey League has just done a fantastic job. It started with 5 programs with the Hockey is for Everyone program, or the diversity program back then. Now we have 27 programs throughout North America, and the boys and girls are getting the opportunity to get on the ice, and you know, we're giving them the opportunity to come and play. And I feel that I've been blessed over the years that I've had the opportunity to work with these boys and girls.
Well, and Richard, I want to give you the chance to give us a final thought on visibility and how the role that plays within the game of lacrosse. So what would your late father want, you know, future lacrosse players to hear or to know about the game of lacrosse?
Well, it's a good builder for humanity. It teaches, you know, respect. It teaches strength. It teaches teamwork. It teaches how to belong to a community and uplift the community. Mm-hmm. He was involved with so many winning teams, but even when they lost, it was a team effort. And you know, many of his best friends, you know, started out as teammates, but lifelong friendships were created. So it's a community builder, as you can see at Six Nations, how many people, you know, how many families are involved, you know, in the sport of lacrosse. So it's a very positive sport, and we're hoping that it keeps growing, and we're hoping that it gets spread, you know, farther in the northern communities as well, where it isn't as played as much.
Well, and thank you all for the impact that you've had on inclusion in sport, and for the impact that you all will continue to have. Richard, I'm sure that your father is very, I'm sure that he's very, very pleased with the way that you've represented him today. And I'm very pleased that I got to spend some time with all of you, and congratulations on your induction in Canada's Sports Hall of Fame. It's well deserved. And I'm sure that as long as there are inclusion advocates out there like all of you, things are looking good when it comes to inclusion in sport. So thank you all, and congratulations.